Thank you, Dr. Craig. I would now like to invite Dr. Shook to make another 12-minute rebuttal.
Well, now you see how the guy who gets to go second really falls behind fast. So I got a lot of catching up to do, but let's start with some preliminary complaints about Dr. Craig's claims that I haven't proven squat. Let's find out. Now, I say again that a sufficiently evidence-proof supernaturalism, a supernaturalism that is compatible with any and all anything that science goes to the trouble of bothering to find out, is a useless supernaturalism. Yeah, it can't be proven false. How does this help the supernaturalist? I can't prove Santa Claus doesn't exist either. Maybe Santa Claus has a hidden, secret, invisible castle up at North Pole. Theologians are very intelligent people with powerful imaginations. For every supernaturalist hypothesis on offer from this Christian, there are hundreds more. What's an atheist to do? Somehow, they can't all be true. When the atheist shrugs his shoulders and refuses to believe any of them, who looks more rational? Now, Dr. Craig wasn't paying attention to my argument for naturalism, so I will go to the trouble of repeating it. My argument for naturalism is precisely two claims. Sound familiar? Follow me. Number one, nature exists. Number two, no supernaturalist hypothesis, no bridge is reasonable. And furthermore, by the way, if you don't have a bridge to the other side, if you have no idea how to cross it, you have no reason to think there's something else waiting for you at the end. You're going in the irrational chasm. When Dr. Craig claims, well, I must be right because he can't prove me false, you see we have this sort of schoolyard juvenile logic operating here, and I think we're adults. Now, let's get back to the concrete details of the arguments. An atheist, to repeat, by my definition, does not believe in any God, anything supernatural, and lives without religion. Some of the things that I've said, for example, you cannot prove a sufficiently transcendent, evidence-proof supernaturalist hypothesis false, sounds more like agnosticism. I cannot waste time here getting into the terminological debates. Is atheism kind of like agnosticism or really different? Atheists and agnostics can't agree with each other. I pitied poor Dr. Craig to try to figure that out as well. So let's drop it. Let's stick with my definitions because this is my time. Now, Craig goes on to talk about how this business of the multiverse is, silly and hasn't been proven. I told you it hasn't been proven. This is cutting-edge stuff. It's kind of weird that Dr. Craig would appeal to one current scientific cosmological theory. That's a profound respect by a Christian theologian for some contemporary scientific theory, a shining example, actually. I wish we're more respected. But it leads him into trouble because now the naturalist grasps that any current scientific theory is just that. It's bound to get modified or entirely replaced, possibly within our lifetimes, if not sooner. The idea of the multiverse is being explored, and there are more hypotheses waiting. There's a lot of darkness out there to be explored by science. When the supernaturalist says, well, this scientist says that, and this scientist says that, the naturalist says, so what? The pantheon of scientists that have been completely wrong would fill this room, okay? All scientists only partially grasp at reality. This is humility on the part of the naturalist. It's not an admission that naturalism is false. If Dr. Craig doesn't think nature exists, I'd like to hear one positive argument for that. All right? The problem is we're at the very edges of speculative knowledge. All right. Now, I have to say a little bit about the fine-tuning argument before finishing up my promised explanation of what I have to say about morality, the Bible, and mystical experience. Now, it is true that if certain fundamental properties of our universe were slightly different, then the type of organic earthly-like life that we presently understand would not be possible. However, for all we know, other kinds of life could flourish under quite different fundamental properties of nature. We are simply ignorant of the possibilities. Now, the theologian could counter-argue by saying that a supernatural being has an overriding aim to ensure the existence of forms of life just like us. Now, this refined supposition would need much additional argument to support it. We haven't heard any of that tonight. Perhaps we will. And such an argument eventually resorts to suspiciously theological or scriptural dogmas for premises, since there's no obvious reason why a very intelligent and powerful God would even bother creating life. Perhaps life is an accidental byproduct of the creation of what this God really wants, like lots of sand or something. I don't know. Alternatively, you could try to say, well, God is so good. Okay, that really puts human beings again at the center of the universe. I like human beings. I'm fond of them. I'm actually one of them myself. So, but I also think that a Christian, a religious believer, should have profound respect for all the rest of creation as well, and perhaps humanity needs to be humbled. Our planet needs us to do this. It could also be pointed out, Dr. Craig's a theist. He believes in one supreme being. He's actually given no argument that there is only one supreme being operating here. Many other sorts of kinds of gods could equally be hypothesized as responsible for creating the universe or controlling the existence of life in our universe, such as a committee of powerful but uncaring gods that enjoy experimenting with life, or a god that's actually partially evil, for all we know. Furthermore, this universe is actually quite inhospitable to life as we know it, since locations favoring organic life seem to be quite rare. We tenuously cling to existence on the surface of an unpredictable planet lost among countless solar systems where Earth-like planets might be scarce. Now, perhaps there is a good bit of other kinds of life available out there, don't know. It's too soon to be talking about probabilities and saying that the naturalist has a low probability here. We are simply too ignorant to make these sorts of arguments. Now, let me proceed to morality. I told you, no single religion can be trusted to tell us what they are, these special, objective, or perhaps moral truths. The special authority of one lone God has never been much help. The Bible alone appears to endorse a wide variety of moral rules, most of which Christians don't follow anyway. Even if small sections of the Bible are isolated, such as certain sayings of Jesus, they are so highly idealistic and vaguely general that Christians ever since have had a hard time agreeing on what they specifically require. Over the past 2 millennia, Christians have disagreed over war, slavery, capital punishment, the rights of women, the justice of capitalism, what form of government God would approve. Ironically, the little specific agreement that Christians have reached by now has been reached by consultations among theologians and democratic voting in ecclesiastical conventions and assemblies. Now, reliance on democratic methods is especially ironic here, since the Bible nowhere approves of mass democracy, a fact that has kept kings and aristocracies in power for many centuries. Despite this obstacle, Christians who were tired of tyranny and religious warfare put their faith in democracy and the rule of law. No longer would the legitimacy of law ultimately reside on any king. In democracies everywhere, people are committed to the objective truth of basic laws protecting rights and liberties. We don't need kings because we each have each other to sustain objective law and pass it on with needed adjustments to the next generations. Now, according to Dr. Craig's argument, if its reasoning was valid, democracy would never work unless all citizens recognized a supremely kingly lawgiver. But his reasoning is valid no longer. And just as objective law has been liberated, so has objective morality.